last week. Just we were saying layout of offshore. We're going focusing on offshore, but I'm going to say, some things about onshore because it has some elements that are common to both. So we said basically there are two different types. One of them, I have a dry Christmas tree and I have wet Christmas tree. Basically platform wells, and I had the subsea wells. And and then we went very quickly through the main elements. Those elements is important to allow me to be positioned in the system where we are, okay, to call it properly. And just to give you an overview, how can we control the well, and what is the interface between the well and the rest of the system. Okay, and something about choke. We don't talk too much about choke in this course, even though it's the main control element for controlling the rate, right? This simple example you saw, this calculator, where you just have to keep opening the choke every time to keep the rate constant. We don't put too much into the physics of the choke. How do we model the choke? Okay, so if for that you have interest, we can take, let's see if we have time for a separate session, or I can point you to material that you can use. Okay, and that's what we saw, and we had basically here 3 examples of Christmas tree, onshore well, then you have an offshore platform well, and then you have a subsea well. And basically here you have access on the platform, and on the onshore you have access to everything, so you can go physically and do changes yourself. In the subsea, you have to have all these big structure first for protection purposes, to be sure that you're not going to get knocked by a vessel, by another subsea operation, etc. But also to be able to control and actuate all of these valves that we mentioned remotely. Okay, basically using hydraulic fluid. But then the cost, I think the cost, I'm not sure if I have the most updated figures, but it's something between $20 million to maybe $100 million, okay, for a subsea Christmas tree. So that's a big amount. So then so we have basically, let's focus a bit more on subsea systems. And we have 3 clear configurations, okay, how we distribute the wells on the seafloor. Distribution, and as I mentioned last class, there is a full course if you want more information. There is a course called Subsea Systems. I think that's the name. When they go in detail on the control system, intervention system, etc. So there you can get more details. But basically we have 3 different ways to arrangement, let's call it arrangement of wells on the seabed. One of them is called satellite. And basically is the case we already said before. We have just one single well, and then we use a pipeline or a flow line to connect it to the rest of the system. Okay, and that we use, you will see it in some cases. For example, when we have like I told you, a pocket, a very small accumulation of hydrocarbons, can be oil, can be gas, that you want to develop, and you want to tie into the rest of the system. And you can do that with 1 or 2 wells. Then you have another that is called cluster. And I think here I can pull a figure. Okay, that's what I call a subsea well cluster. Okay. Where each well is independent. Okay, so let's put here one comment, is that independent wells, that you see each one of these are wells, but all of them are relatively close to each other. That means that I don't have to move significantly the drilling vessel, or I have to move it very, only a small range of motion to drill every well. So that's where I have what I do all of that from a drilling center. Okay, develop most of these wells, maybe the distance between them 200 meters, 50 meters, something like that, but they are in the vicinity, and I really don't have to make a big operation and wait a lot of time to move the drilling vessel from one place to the other. But each well, is independent, and just, also to add some terminology, you see, here you have a unit in the center, okay, that we call a manifold, that basically the function in this particular case is to commingle, okay, like to merge the production of individual wells. Okay, and here we have, this is basically a pipeline. So it's receiving the production from all the individual wells, and after that, so here the flow is going on that direction, right? And then it's sending it through here. And you will see now there are two lines. So you see, why do we have two flow lines? And that's one of the things I want to go now, but just wait a moment. So you have satellite, you have only one of these, and then you use a flow line to take it further. You have a cluster, you have many of these around in the same place, and that's cheap because you don't have to move the vessel. Basically, you can go one after the other. And then you have the favorite of what we use here very much in the Norwegian continental shelf, which is called a template. And template, basically, we have a structure that looks like that. Like here we have another figure. And the structure is made such that you see here it has some covers, where you have 4 covers that you can lift, and then you have the option to drill 4 wells from this template. Okay, and here you have one here at the back, and you have one here. So this is a 4 well template, and we can put here a heart saying that this is the favorite of Norway. Okay, Statoil is in love of these guys. But you also have 12 wells, 8 wells, different things. I want to also say that, so I'm going to ask, maybe my drilling friends, okay, what is supporting the weight of the well in this configuration? What is supporting the weight of the well? No, is the conductor, okay? So the conductor is what is supporting really the weight of the well and the Christmas tree and everything else. Here, this structure that you had, these suction anchors that you were saying just now, this is supposed to hold just the structure and the manifold. Okay, this structure has something here in the center that is the manifold that has the same function that this unit here in the center. It's just to commingle the whole production of all the 3-4 wells and then send it further. Okay, so these suction anchors, they have to support, so they support the weight of the structure, of the protection. Okay, this is a protection structure, all of that. So it supports the weight of the protection structure and the weight of the manifold. Let me put that maybe here. This, I'm going to put it here. Okay, and the manifold, but not, and I'm going to put it here explicitly, not the wells or the Christmas tree. that has to do with the conductor. The conductor is the one that is actually carrying all the weight of the casing, the tubing, the Christmas tree, everything else. Okay, so keep that in mind. We will see something interesting later, but keep that in mind. It's also the same thing here. Satellite wells, you see, each one of these wells actually is the conductor that is holding the whole weight of the subsea Christmas tree. Hmm? Okay, and the conductor, how does it, it is basically just with friction with the soil. Okay, you have a section. How much is it? 60 meters. The conductor, the length, like 60 or a bit more, and then you have just the friction between the soil and the pipe. Hmm? Yeah. So let's see here. I have here one picture how it looks like. You have seen it. They're very famous. Can basically these suction anchors they work on the principle they are just like a space. They anchor themselves on the soil. Okay, and then you have a pocket of air or some fluids that are above the ground. Here you have the ground, and then if you want to keep going down, you have to put here some sort of a pump, and you have to drain the fluid that is inside that cavity such that it will be anchoring itself deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay, and then comes the issue that if you empty too much one leg, it becomes like on uh, how do you say, non-balanced. So you have to be careful. That's why you have here these visual indicators to tell you, the same. And they have also some level indicator. Yeah. So here I forgot to mention something. So let's make, sorry about your notes, but I'm going to make a very short comment. So that also that you know the terminology. Okay. Here you see these rigid pieces of pipe, and they are basically suspended, right, between the wells and the manifold. This is what we call a jumper. In contrast, these pipeline and flow lines, they are laying basically all of their weight is supported on the ground. Okay, and they might be different configurations. They might be that you have to dig a trench to lay the pipe. You have to build some support every certain time, depending on the type of terrain you have. But these sections that connect usually cluster wells to manifolds, they are rigid and they are called jumpers. And you have basically two types. Okay, you have horizontal jumper that can be used, is usually used for shallow water depth, where you make the connection laterally. Again, then you have to use an ROV to make the connection. Or you have also vertical jumpers, in which the connection is made vertical, and this is used for much deeper um, water sheets. And the main idea of the vertical jumper is that the gravity actually helps to set the connection. Okay, it's much easier to make the coupling. But you have different, and you see why it has that shape. That is like that. Basically, when you have expansion due to thermal, you start producing and you stop producing, you will have a lot of shrinking and expanding. Okay? And if you have like a straight piece of pipe, then it will create a lot of stresses, right, on the connection points. So you make these bends such that it's like acts like releasing the stresses. But this you will hear, maybe in your projects, maybe in some guest lectures, that this causes a big issue, because when the well stops producing, these pipe sections will start to cool down. Okay, these jumpers will start to cool down. And then you might have formation of what our guest lecturer was discussing today, that you will have formation of hydrate, formation of wax in these pipe segments. Okay, and it's a big issue. So keep that in mind, just a small comment. So that's one thing, and then the other thing, how do we define the layout of the subsea system? Okay, so where first, how I'm going to commingle all the wells, what how I'm going to transport that. So I'm going to talk here about just two main things that we have to consider. Okay, two important things that are relevant for production. One thing is the need for individual well metering. Okay, if I need to measure the production of each individual well. Okay, that's one of the things that play a big role here. And then the next question that goes inside that is the which method are accepted for metering. Okay, and this metering is not just, we will see now, it's not just that I want to know how much the rate is to history match my reservoir model or to make these slugging studies that our guest lecturer was doing, but basically to pay, right, is what we call fiscal metering. So that's what we call fiscal metering. Okay, and the other point that we have to consider for, among other things, many other things, okay, but the other point that we have to consider is the need for pigging. Okay, these two things. And on the preference, which type of system to use, this is very clear. That's for marginal pockets or marginal fields where I don't need too many. This one, and the difference between choosing this one or this one is really just a matter of tradition, okay, of taste. Some companies, Total, they like very much this. They don't like cluster wells. Statoil, they dream and they like very much cluster template wells. They don't like too much this approach. So it depends on the bit on the company that is making the development. Okay, but these two, they are actually very important. So I just here took two examples. Okay, that's in Brazil. Okay, I somebody here that reads Portuguese. Yeah, more or less, más o menos. Yeah, that's for example a regulation about metering of hydrocarbons, number one. Okay, and it says about testing wells. Okay, so it says, so who is translating or checking at least my translation? I don't know. Okay. Okay, but it says you have to test each well. Okay, but it says you have to test it every 3 months, every 90 días, 3 months. You have to, and that is if. Okay, so just to find how much each well is producing. You cannot go in your life happy, just jumping in the field of flowers saying, I don't know how much each of my wells is producing. I don't care. Brazil tells you you have to test every 3 months, no matter what. You have to know how much each well is producing. Okay? Okay, for example. And then it says, if, okay, they're not going to use it for how much you are producing, but actually you're going to make, this is shared fiscal measurement, right? That means that you have one well which has one ownership, another well that has another ownership, and then you are commingling it. Then it says you have to make it every 42 days. That correct? Or expert? Yeah. Okay. 42 days. So now we have two, at least in Brazil, right? Offshore Brazil. Remember, this is deep. and it's very, everything is very expensive. You are maybe 2,000 meters, 3 kilometers below sea level. Okay, and then the next request is that you have to use a particular method. This particular method is test separators or test tanks. I don't accept any other measuring method. Okay, so what does it mean for my subsea system? If I have these two regulations, I have to test it every 3 months, a subsea well, or every 42 days. And then the other one, I have to use the test separator. Spend a lot of money. Yeah. So that means that you have to, let's say I have two subsea wells, right? Let's say I have, it's quite deep. Okay, so I have an FPSO. Okay, and I have two wells, no matter how I have it. If I have a cluster, I have two satellites. Let's not go too much in detail. How I'm going to test each one of these individual wells? The only option, right, is that you put, I either have one line, right, in which I have the two wells are producing to this line, but then every 90 days I have to close one well. I have to leave only one producing, okay, and then I find the rate. And then I have to change. I have to close this well, and I have to leave the other one producing, and that's how I find the rate, right? What happens if now I have two, right? What happens if I have 15 wells? Yes.
Don't you have like a control line and a general line?
We are going there. Okay, slowly. Okay, so if you have many wells, this approach becomes just unsustainable. After you just have finished testing one well, you will have again to start again, and you are never going to produce in full production. Okay, you are going to be producing almost always to a single well rate, just because of the testing. Mhm. Yeah, another option is, for example, if you want to avoid that problem, you say, well, I'm going to put now two lines. Okay, but now if I have more and more wells, what will happen if this is what we said in Brazil, 3 kilometers? Okay, it's going to be expensive. You have to put a lot of lines going up on the. So for that comes, this why, we need something called, we need to use something called production manifold. Again, we will go just in a moment to that. But just to give you another example, so let's take the Norwegian regulation. So here you can find, if you, yeah. So here you can find the link of this regulation if you want. And then you have the Norwegian regulation, which actually says it's much more relaxed. It's saying basically that each field has to first define, okay, that's in Norway, and that's the link where it is. But basically before that it says each field you have to make an evaluation, what are the metering needs, depending on the partners, depending on the distribution that you have of the different wells, the ownership, and you have to present a plan to the Norwegian Petroleum Directorate that we have to discuss, okay, that the government we have to discuss with you to see if we approve it. But they have something very interesting that says our in contrast with the Brazilian regulation is saying, well, you can actually use multi-phase meter. Multi-phase meter is can be used if traditional single-phase meter is not possible for financial reasons. Okay, like in that case, if I have 20 wells and I have to put a riser, a pipeline to each one of them, will be very expensive. My field will be non-economical. So you say in that case, I can use the multi-phase meter can be used as a fiscal meter. Okay. Yep. Okay. So that brings us to to the need or the function of a production manifold. We said already the production manifold, the main function we said before was to commingle or merge, okay, or gather the production from different wells. But also the second option that I have, or the second function, is to route the production, and we will see how are we going to do that, but we want to route the production of an individual well, of a given well, okay, to test or production separator. And here we define that if the only method that I prefer due to cost, okay, or due to regulation or anything else, I have to use a test separator, I have to be able to route the production of that well with every certain frequency, every 90 days, every 42 days, whatever, to a test separator where I actually can get the flow rate of that particular well. Okay, any other function of the production manifold that you haven't seen yet? Or I can also say distribute. If I have more than two production separators, I want also to have the option to choose one or the other. And that's a bit tricky. If I have more than two production separators, route the production of each well to to the one that to if I have more than one production separator, route the production of each well to the one I choose. Okay, and that, for example, if I have, let's say, two production separators, okay, and I'm having too much, let's say I have all the production of many wells with high GOR to that separator, okay, then that separator might become bottlenecked just by the amount of gas it has. It might be a huge amount of gas, and this one might have kind of a large amount of liquid but not so much on the gas. So I have to have the option to balance my production such that I can avoid circumvent these bottlenecking situations, such that I can distribute evenly in the two separators I have, the liquid production, gas production, water production, for example. Okay, so that's one purpose that I want for my production manifold. So how do I make that manifold? Now, with the knowledge you have on the well, how do I make that manifold? Here I have, let's say, I have in one place, we can define that's in the platform, or we don't know where it is yet, but I have two separators. I have the production and I have the test separator. And then I have someplace here, I have two wells, well 1 and well 2. Okay, so first I have to have, and that's, I have no choice, I have to have two lines, right? I have to have two lines, one line and another line. Okay, and then on that flow line I have to define, well, this will be pipeline, and this will be also pipeline, and this will be just a piece of pipe where I'm going to, where I'm going to connect the production of these two wells. So how do I make, how is that manifold going to look like? If I want to be able both to send the production of well 2 to separator 1 or to test, what do I have to put in place? Okay, valves, that's one thing, but I have to put pipes, right? So I have to put a pipe connecting well 2 to this that I'm going to call test header, this short piece of pipe, and this will be the production header. And I put two valves that are going to be, how do I call these valves?
Check.
No, that check we need, that's something important, okay? But these are called routing valves. That I decide routing, that means I decide these are routing valves. Do they have to be which type? Control or on and off? On and off. Okay, so these are typically gate type valves. So during normal operation, I ask you, which valve is going to be open, which valve is going to be closed? Normal operation, this open, this one, this one, and this one. Now let's say I want to test well 1. What do I do?
Open first the routing on the test.
I have to close this one, right? And then open this one.
That's not safe.
Okay, why not?
Because that's a, you don't do that. You first open the one above and then close it. Because you can, if you trip, for example, or something goes bad, the whole thing is closed because of the pressure.
I'm not so um, we will talk about safety later, but the thing is that you don't never want to close completely the well, okay? For some other reasons, but
Or you can kill the well.
we don't want to kill anything. So remember, yeah, I don't want to go from here, from this side back, okay? We have to have certain pressure rating, okay, from this side back, that has to support the full pressure of the well when it's completely closed. That means full reservoir pressure. If I close here, then all of my system should hold, right? Should hold reservoir pressure. But then downstream from this point, or from the choke actually, downstream from that point, I have another standard. What is the API processing? It's 530. Okay, that is basically with low pressure. Okay, so if the routing valve is located here and I close here, then you will have a piece of pipe that will be exposed to the high reservoir pressure. So that's why Juan Manuel, he was saying that it's not safe to do that operation, but basically you have to open this one first and then close this one to avoid building up pressure in that part of the system that doesn't have a pressure rating, a high pressure rating. In a very simplistic way, I don't want to go more in detail into that. Okay, but basically I have to open that valve and close that valve, but I have to know that I myself dig into that problem. So because I ask you, right, what is the sequence? I could have just tell you, what do we close, what do we open. So, and then, like you will say it, we just don't need this on and off, but we need also these check valves, right, to avoid that we have backflow. So we am going to put here. There is not much space. Okay, but I have to have this non-return or one-way check valve, okay, that I paint with two parallel lines and an arrow in between, and the arrow has to be in the direction of the flow, that I allow the flow. Okay, but very important, if something happens, why do we have the check valve? Where can you see that I will have a problem? Let's say well 1 is much stronger than well 2. What could happen? That you have backflow. Okay, basically you don't produce not 1 or 2, but basically part of the production of 1 starts flowing inside well 2. Then you have like a thief well.
But why do we have check wells in the one for the test separator? Because only one of them is open.
Yeah, we will see if for example already. What does it that tell me now, that we put that sketch? Okay, what does it tell me for platform systems or for onshore systems? How do I make that okay, in platform, if you remember, okay, it looks something like that. Actually, we have a picture on the compendium, so let's see. So simply, in platform, it is extremely simple. You have just the wells, they come to the same well bay. They are in the well bay, okay, where I have all my wells. Then I have two separators located someplace in the platform, one or two, and I have to make this pipe. mm, Here I have my choke. That's from Gulfax. I think that's Gulfax C. Okay, so here I have my production from my well. I have the choke, and then I have two lines. Okay, that after here someplace I have the routing valves, and then I just decide if to take that well to production or take that well to separator. But that might be a let's say half a kilometer, maybe 500 meters piece of pipe that I have to put between these two, right? Okay, so that I have to put here this pipe length. They are relatively short, okay, in a platform well. But what happens when I have a subsea well, or when I have subsea wells? These two separators are actually in the platform, right? On the platform. Okay, that means that I physically have to put two lines going down on the seabed, and they have to reach all the way to where my wells are, and that's costly. Okay, that costs a lot of money. So in platform wells, no problem. If the wells are also in the platform, this section will be very short. Okay, so let's put a comment here. In platform wells, this length is short. In contrast, when we talk about subsea wells, this length is considerable. Okay, let's put it long here. It might be kilometers, might be 20 kilometers, might be something like that. Okay, but then I finally had my my way to test the wells if I need to use a test separator. Okay, production manifold is clear. The function. How do I use it to test the production? What happens if now I have a third, what I told you now? Let's just repeat, duplicate that case. But now I have two production trains. That's very typical. Instead of having just one production separator, I will call it production 1, production 2, and then I have the test, which is going to have a smaller size. So what do I do in that case if I have three whales? If I have two whales, okay, let's put them someplace here. Okay, how do I connect? And I want to have the flexibility, okay, to send well 1 either to 1, 2, or test, and well 2 exactly the same. How do I solve this problem? First, I have to have 3 lines, right? 1 line, 2 line, and 3 line, and then I have to have this section where I have the header actually, and then the rest is the flow line. Then how many valves I need for one well? 3. Okay, so I have to make 1 line, and I'm not going to put the check. Okay, remember you have to put it, another line, and I have to put another line here. Okay, and then exactly the same with this well. 1, 2. Decide how we make this. 3. Clear? Okay, so I need 3 separate. I will tell you, for example, an engineer comes and says, well, I can save some money. Let's put these 2 into one, okay, into one pipe. How will that help? Do I have still there the option? He says, well, here I can just use one pipe, one valve, and then one pipe. Something like this. Okay, will that help? Yes or no? No, because actually here after this point I have no control. Here I can control that the production can go to separator 1, right? Or can go to both separator 2 or test. But I cannot actually control that it will go only to number 2 or only to test. Okay? So I cannot have any option. If I want to have the option to send to the 3 of them separately, I have to have 3 valves. Okay? Okay, so I have to have exactly 3 valves. Okay, so let's see if you understood, this concept, right? Let's see a system where we have template wells, okay? And I think we have here a picture. So for template wells, so how it's going to look like for template, let's say I have 4, right? 1, 2, 3 wells, 4. And all of them are in a subsea template. Okay, and here I have some place I have my FPSO or my platform where I have 2 separators. Okay, so what do I need? Well, how many pipelines I need? 2. Can I make the trick? I just say these 2 are joined here and I put 1 pipeline.
No.
Okay, I'm using examples from last year course. Why not? Because here you're merging and then you're splitting, but you're not sure what you're splitting is the same that you merge. Okay, you cannot guarantee that. So that's not a good solution. I have to have 2 flow lines. Okay, and to make it nice, remember I told you the manifold module is in the center of this template, right? Remember that I showed you this picture? This picture, okay, the manifold we said is here in the center, so that's where we're going to put the 2 lines. Okay, so these 2 lines they arrive here at the center. Okay, and here inside, what do I need to have? 2 headers, right? The production header and the test header. So I have to have 2 pieces of pipe like that. And then how should I connect my wells?
Each one is connected to both.
Okay, each well has a pipe, right? Then I have a valve, and then it's connected to this manifold, or has a valve, and then it's connected to that manifold. and the same for all the rest. And in that way, I can test the well without disrupting the production. Okay, but I need to have two lines in this. So now let's see if you finally, let's put here the big and difficult picture to see if you really understand what do we have here. That's the real, it's not anymore a line sketch, but that's the real system. So where are the two headers? We said the production and the test in this drawing. We go first to the big pipes, right? These are the ones carrying the flow. Don't look at any of the small things we have. So here we have one, and we have another one behind. So these are the two main headers on the template itself. So where is the well coming from? From the wells are on the side. Okay. So where is the connector for the well? The pipe for the well. This one here. Okay. So you see, let's follow that. So here you say it goes through here, right? And it has a strange shape. So why does it have that shape? The expansion. Okay. Remember, I told you the weight of the well is supported by the soil. Okay, and the weight of the manifold is supported by the seabed. When the well heats up, it's going to expand. Okay, and then if you have a rigid connection, it's just going to break. Okay, so that's why you have this strange shape to account for the thermal expansion of the well. So there it goes like that, and then you have this splitting point, and you have two valves. Okay, one of them that goes to the test manifold, and one that goes to the production manifold. Okay, that one goes to the test, and this one goes to the production. Okay, clear? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and all the rest we don't care too much. What do you have? You have all kind of things there, but we don't care too much.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I did not understand why the first layout, I mean the one with having one pipeline and two distributed at the end to the two separators didn't work.
The one, which one? This one here that we are merging these two. Yeah. So let's make that example again. So you have two separators, right? And you are proposing to use something like this. Is it? And here you have these four wells. Let's say you have just one and two. Okay, both of them are producing. So how do I send this well 1, to test? Just well 1. I want to send only one well. Well, I have to close here, right? Yeah, and then I have to put two more valves here. But then I will be disrupting production. I have to close the production of well 2 to be able to flow 1 through the separator, right? Otherwise, I will have the production of 1 together with the production of 2. Yep. Clear? Okay. Yes.
For this fiscal business is why would say Norway would want to know specific volumes for one well when they can do like the fiscal would not change even if you combine
Yeah, regulation of the country. They feel in Brazil, for example, they say if you are draining too much of one well, you can damage the reservoir. So they want to control how much actually you're recovering from one particular well. Okay, different reasons, but that's what they decided. Here in Norway, they say, well, you propose a plan and we accept it. If you say that we don't have to measure, then you have to show me why you don't have to measure. Okay. But that depends on regulation. The country in that case said, I want to know how much each well produces, and you have to test it using test separator. Point. Nothing to discuss. Okay, so now the same system. What happens if I have two templates? How do I make the same arrangement for two templates?
Some branch of the test and production into the other template.
Let's see. Let's put here two templates. Okay. So the other template, if let's say is someplace here, okay, not let's say it's completely perpendicular, nothing to do with the other one, right? So then I have to put two separate lines going to that template, right? And then I have to coordinate that I won't be testing one well here, with testing another well here. But if the two wells are in the same or in similar location, let's say I have two more, the other template is here. Let's say that the other template is here. Okay, one way that I can do is just to prolong it, right? So I can just put that one here, and here I have exactly the same arrangement. One well coming to produce here. Okay. Yeah, and then I can put many chain together like that. Now, going back finally to your comment, sometimes we are not doing testing all the time, right? Just we do it depending on the frequency, how often we want to test. So it will be really a shame to have one of the pipes just empty, not producing anything. So in that case, I just use the two lines to produce to the platform. Okay, and not use any one of them for testing. I want to have the option to use it for testing, but maybe I don't need to be empty all the time. I can still produce from that line, and when I need it for testing, I shift or I route all the other wells to the main line, and then I use the other one for testing. Okay, because it's expensive. Okay, this costs money, and I want to exploit it to its full potential. Yes, so now I think before we close our session, I want you to work a bit on, let's see what else I have here. Oh, pigging. Yep. Yeah, so here you see you have that arrangement, okay? You have, if you have on a template, that's how it looks like, right? But if you have it in a cluster, it's going to look exactly the same, or not. So let's say we have wells now, they're not in template, but we have cluster wells. Subsea cluster wells. Making kind of your homework, so now I will be left with no exercise to give you. So, okay, we have two separators, the same thing. Now we have four wells. They are not in a template, they have their own subsea module. Okay, they have their own subsea template, and they are producing. So how do I do in this case? Here we have a unit called a manifold here in the center, right? So what do I need first? Two pipe, okay, two flow lines going from here and going to the manifold, right? In the manifold is where I'm going to have this functionality of producing one or the other. Okay, so now how do I connect the wells to this manifold? these pulls or jumpers, okay, that I mentioned before. Okay, but then we need the two valves, right? Okay, one spool, that's the key. Okay, we don't want to put two lines. We could do it like that, right? Okay, the problem is it's more costly, right? I'm having two lines going from the well template to the manifold template. So in that case, I just use only one, and here the valves are floating on the subsea, which is not good. So I use just one line, okay, and then I put a valve inside, and then I have another valve for the other line, for the other header. Okay. Yep.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So, for each template or say cluster, can you have different types of wells, like a producer injector, or it has to have only producers or only injectors?
For you're saying this type for
For example, if there's a template for 4 wells, do all wells have to be the same type?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure because you have
They can be like 3 production and one injector.
mm-hmm.
It depends actually.
Yep.
Because in non field there are different templates and there are 3 in one template there are 3 production
Mm-hmm.
and one injector.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep, like in I think also Ivarosen you have how is it called? You have also a satellite, and they have one injector and two producers on the same template. Mm. Yep, don't remember the name. Yep. Now, what happens if the multi-phase meter is accepted? Okay, it's accepted. So systems with multi-phase meter. Okay, and that's going to be one of your exercises. Okay, for the next set. So let's say again let's say I have satellite, okay, wells, or not satellite, but just cluster type, each one with each template. Okay, and I have one separator here. Okay, and then I say I accept multi-phase meter has a measuring technique, okay, for the flow. So what does it mean? That means I don't need to put two lines, right? I just need one to the main production separator, right? Or not? Where do we want to put the flow meter, the multi-phase meter? Do we want to put it here, subsea, or we want to put it topside?
subsea.
Why?
Because if you have a riser then your flow will be like
So let's say we want to put the multi-phase meter here, okay, on the platform or on the FPSO. Then I have to put how many flow lines, how many pipelines? Two, right? Because I have to isolate the production of one well, and I have to take it all the way to where the meter is. And the meter in this case is on the platform. Yes? So I'm not going to avoid by having a multi-phase meter. I'm not doing anything smart. I'm just having two. Here comes, Professor Golan has a lot of energy. Yeah. Yeah. So if you were going to put this multi-phase meter here, okay, multi-phase meter, you still have to transport the production of one well, of that one well that you want to test in one isolated pipe all the way to the platform, right? So you still have these two lines. The only saving that you make is not having a test separator here on the platform, but you still have to put these two lines, which is a big expense. So in that case, if you're going to use multi-phase meter, the most clever way is to put it someplace here, such that you measure and then you combine the stream with the rest of the wells. Okay? And then you have just one pipe going up. So let's see how that will look like. Okay. So do we need the production manifold? Yes. Okay. So let's put two production manifolds. One production manifold. Okay. And I have to put one line. So what next? Okay, a valve. I'm going to put a valve here, and then I want to put another valve here. That's fine, right? So, but how do I test that well?
You put the multi-phase meter in one of the lines.
In one of the lines saying here,
Test.
or huh?
Yeah.
But here I will have also the other wells are going to be coming here, right?
Yeah, but that'll be closed.
So let's help you a bit. So let's put here. I'm connecting the main pipe to this manifold, right? When I'm producing normally, this one here I made exactly what I told you not to make. Okay. Again, the same thing. Not really. We have to be. So let's call this the manifold template. Again, from here we take. Yeah. So this one is closed. This one is open. It's producing to the platform, and this one is open, and this one is closed, and is producing to the platform. Right? Both wells. Now, if I want to test this well that I have here, let's call this well 1. Okay, what do I do? I close this valve, right? I send the production to the test manifold, but then I have no place, it cannot go any place. So I have to send it back to this line, right? And how do I send it back to that line? I have to make a connection, right? But then I use that option to put here my famous multi-phase meter, such that when this well circulates, it's going to go through the test manifold, then it's going to go through the multi-phase meter. I'm gathering the information from that meter, and then it's going to just merge with the rest of the production. Okay? That clear? Yeah. And everything, in that case, everything is on the manifold. I still have from my wells to the subsea template, I have the jumper. And I have two headers that I need for testing, and I have my routing valves, and I have my multi-phase meter between these two headers. Okay, so I'm going to do a small change. I'm going to put this check valve, okay, that these are very important to make sure that you have no backflow through the meter. And here I have this multi-phase meter. Okay, quite a few things, examples in this class, but so let's we are just about on time. So let's see what did we cover. We said three main configurations. Okay, how can I spread the wells in the seabed? One of them is called cluster. That they are very close to each other, but still each well is in a separate template. Okay, I do that. It's easy to. I don't have to move much with the drilling vessel or with the drilling floating floater that I have. I have satellite well exactly the same like that, but I have only one. Wells are spread. I don't have many in the same place. And I have the third option, which is we like it very much in Norway. It's a template wells of usually we drill 3 out of 4. Okay, to have the fourth like a backup or like for injection. But we usually like to use only 3 in case one well is screw up. Then we have option for another one. Then comes, actually there are many things that define the layout. Okay, I want to be as close as possible to the reservoir. I want to drill If I have to reach certain target, I have to drill from a place which is more or less in the center. Okay, but one of the things is the need for metering. If I need to meter each individual well, okay, how much it's it producing, and if I need pigging, and that we're going to cover tomorrow. For example, in Brazil, you need to measure every 3 months, or you need to measure every month and a half. Yep, 42. And you have to use a test separator. In Norway, we accept using the multi-phase meter if you fulfill all of these conditions with the multi-phase meter. Okay, then yeah, yeah. Let's do Okay, yeah, it's a bit distracting. I have like I have a second personality talking in my head, so I feel like I'm a bit crazy. So then we talk about a production manifold. Okay, I told you the main purpose is to route the production to test, to production, or to several, if you have several production trains. And exactly that's what you use if you have to send the production of each well to a particular separator. But you have to have two flow lines from the platform down to the template. And we discussed a bit how it looks like in the template configuration. You have this structure in the center, and if you have two templates, well, you can use, if they are relatively close, you can use this approach and use just the same two pipes. Or if I have cluster wells, then I have to include these valves in the manifold. Okay. And tomorrow I'm going to, just to make a brief discussion onshore, that we use basically a similar approach like this one, but using a test separator, because multi-phase meter is expensive in onshore field. And we're going to discuss briefly on pigging, and we go right away to offshore structure. Okay, so any question before we close? No? Yes?
Separators on subsea.
Huh?
Separators on subsea.
Not for metering, for other purposes. But you don't install a subsea gravity separator just for metering. You use it for different purpose. Okay?
But we can.
You can, but you don't have. It's too costly just for metering. Okay.
So that's mean we have to use this multi-phase metering if we have suppression and subsea. We have no other choice.
Well, there is also another thing there that remember, subsea separator, we usually make it at much higher pressures than the pressure we use topside. Okay, so there is still quite a lot of the gas that is inside the oil. So the rates that you will measure there won't be representative of the rates that you have actually on the platform. Okay, because you have still some vaporization that has to happen in the platform. So yeah, you use if you need to measure how much each well is producing, you have to use multi-phase meter. That's the only option. Okay, so let's continue tomorrow.